Yeah, and you touch some very basic principles, you know, because you're touching one of the biggest belief that has been installed in the general population in the last decades through our educational system, this belief that these germs are the cause of disease, which is based on the theory of Louis Pasteur in the 1800s. And that was taken by the pharmaceutical industry. They started patenting antibiotics and medications, and that's the beginning of the whole pharmaceutical industry. Whereas at the same time, Antoine Béchamp, which was a contemporary and was a colleague of Louis Pasteur, he gave the different perspective of the terrain is what determines if there's going to be disease or not. If there is an imbalance in the terrain, then these microorganisms can take over or can take place during this disease, which it makes so much more sense, especially now with the science that we have, that when there is an imbalance, then the microorganism can have a, let's say, negative effect. But even so, if we go even further than that, we know even if whomever knows the 5 biological laws, I know you know the 5 biological laws, which have been discoveries made in the 1980s by Dr. Hammer in Germany. We have even more knowledge now, and we know that each one of these microorganisms has a specific role and purpose in different tissues of the body to help us survive unique situations, to help us survive situations that create this imbalance in the terrain where these microorganisms live, because they live in all our body. 60 to 70% of our cells are made of these microorganisms. So we are more bugs than humans. So when there is this imbalance in our body, and it's absolutely studied through the work through trauma work, through the 5 biological laws, we know the specific physiological effects in the autonomic nervous system, in the shifts between sympathetic and parasympathetic activations in the body, which create release of neurotransmitters and hormones, which diminish oxygenation, increase acidity, and this creates imbalances in a certain part of the body where these microorganisms live. And when that changes back again into harmony, then sometimes we see an inflammatory process that happens where these microorganisms will be present, but it doesn't mean they were the cause of it. I've just made it super short, a very long story. I just made it very, very short. Just a kind of introduction, to the 5 biological laws, to a lot of other science that is coming out from doctors, microbiologists, and virologists, even Nobel Prize winners right now, which everybody's being censored, of course, in the mainstream and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, but all of this information is here. So once we know this, we start recognizing that these guys are not our enemies. We just need to find harmony. It's all about finding harmony. It's not about fighting the good and the bad, the clean and the dirty, anything. It's about finding harmony. And if we find harmony inside ourselves, if we find harmony in our community, if we find harmony with nature, like all of this story crumbles. All the story that has been told for 15 months crumbles. And we would create a completely new reality where we can flourish, where we can regenerate our bodies, when we can regenerate the environment, the earth, when we can regenerate our communities. And it's in our hands.
Yeah. And we see what's happening in New Zealand.